Let's talk about how to record a podcast via Microsoft Teams. I mean, you have a lot of tools that can really help you record a podcast, but in today's conversation, we want to focus on Microsoft Teams. So here's the approach I want you to pay attention to. So when we talk about planning the content for the podcast, you need to really understand the structure. You need to understand the target audience. You also need to understand a few other things. First of all, why are you interested in having a podcast in the first place? Who are the intended listeners? How might they access your content? Are you recording audio or wanting to capture a conversation with multiple participants? So if we have a solo or a collective podcast, the setup is totally different. And what recording setup do you currently have? And are you currently required to have further equipment for your podcast to be successful? So addressing these points will help ensure that you are prepared to record your first podcast. This is kind of cool. So after planning the content for the podcast, recording the podcast itself is really important. So the main hardware equipment for getting started with podcasting will either be a smartphone, tablet, laptop, or PC with a built-in microphone. And a dedicated external microphone will likely enhance the quality of audio, but it's not essential to the recording process, especially if you are a beginner. And a set of earphones or headphones can also be useful for blocking out unwanted background noise during the recording process. And so if you're simply looking to record solo, then you can use the voice recorder app built into Windows 10. This provides basic recording and editing features and is one of the best and simplest ways of capturing, in our view, audio content. And most modern mobile devices also come with their own built-in app, which will have a similar level of functionality. However, if your aim is to capture, let's say, a conversation between multiple participants, let's say, for example, between a host and several guests, then Microsoft Teams can offer a suitable solution. Firstly, you need to arrange a Microsoft Teams meeting to host the conversation and then invite in other participants. Once the Teams meeting starts, you can actually select Start Recording by clicking, which will begin recording any audio and video being shared by the participants. And what happens here is that once finished, you can follow a similar process to stop recording. And although you're not likely to need any visuals for any podcast, it can be useful to have cameras switched on as a visual aid throughout the recording process. This really helps with making a virtual conversation feel much more natural, as participants can often benefit from seeing body language and visual cues. Other way was welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Now let's talk about editing the content. So it's not always essential to edit the podcast. It really depends if you want to keep things quote unquote natural, or you like to maybe remove some word fillers and so on and so forth. And however, you may wish to tidy up your recording before publishing. If using voice recorder, this is possible within the application itself. So again, we're talking about Microsoft Teams here. Okay, if you have recorded with Microsoft within the Microsoft Teams meeting, you can use the trim video function within Microsoft Stream. If you want to retain the video captured within the podcast, then sharing as part of a Microsoft Stream channel within your organization may prove a suitable option. So this is kind of cool. And if you are wanting to extract just the audio from, let's say, your recording to be hosted elsewhere, and you have that possibility to, or let's say you wish to do some additional editing, such as adding background music or adding an intro outro, this will require the use of audio editing software. You can check with the organization to see what software you might already have available to you. And the one thing we love a tool such as Audacity. This is a free open source alternative, which really provides plenty of functionality for anyone looking to get started with audio editing. Now let's talk about hosting the final podcast. So once you have recorded and edited your podcast, your next consideration is where you need to host it, right? There are many ways that you can host a podcast online. One way of doing this via your Office 365 account will be to use Microsoft Suite. So Suite is basically described as Microsoft's digital storytelling tool and allows great flexibility to embed, let's say, different types of multimedia content, including audio and video. And so to actually get started with your podcast in Suite, select Create New. You want to source a suitable image to use as a cover art form and insert as an image card. Select basically the image emphasis as appropriate. You want to create an audio card. and upload the relevant audio file. Add any additional info like episode number, topic, guest, etc. in the caption box, and use the group function to link both the image and audio. Now, the additional info that I just spoke to you about, this is important also from an SEO perspective, so to speak. And using the styles option within design will also allow you to customize the way that your sway looks and feels. And selecting the slides navigation mode often provides a clear and simple way of navigating between individual podcast episodes. So the play button will provide a preview of how your sway looks, and once you are happy, you can click the share button to obtain a shareable web link. This can be very easy when it comes to embed. If you want to embed within a team using the website option when adding a new tab to a channel. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to record a podcast via Microsoft. Let me give you a few pro tips here. So I want to give you a few recording podcasts via Microsoft Teams best practices guide. What should you really think about? And the thing is, during the pandemic, a couple of years ago, Microsoft Teams has become a popular tool for recording podcasts because it really provides an easy way to bring in guest speakers. And this is kind of cool. And you have to understand, the podcast industry is booming. And a lot of times you have to really find a way to have the right tool to actually do your podcast. And Zoom is not the only tool out there. You have Microsoft Teams. Google also has a couple of tools for you. And so you have to think about a few essentials. If you want to actually record a podcast via Microsoft Teams, way beyond the software itself, you got to also think about the hardware, right? You want to start with the hardware, and you got to think about stuff like microphone, and also have in mind a dedicated recording space. So when we talk about choosing your microphone, you should get yourself a good mic, okay? There are 4 types of mics. You have dynamic, large diaphragm condenser, you have small diaphragm condenser, and ribbon microphones. And most USB microphones will use a dynamic system. However, depending on your space and your requirements, this can change. You should also be using a good microphone arm and boom. This will bring the microphone closer to your mouth and will capture a much cleaner sound. In addition to this, the overall microphone recording level can be reduced, thus reducing the amount of overall sound that is captured outside the microphone. And you also might need a dedicated recording space. It's really important to have a recording space separate that's kind of isolated. And you can have, if you are lucky that you are recording from your house, that's fine, but you want to really have a dedicated space. Like it can be in the basement, it can be in the attic, it can be whatever, where you know you have some level of isolation, so you can actually record in peace. Lastly, you should make sure to unplug all your smartphone devices powered by digital assistants. And this is kind of cool so that you do not get distracted during the recording session. That way you can also you can optimize your time. I want to talk to you about the best software practices. And so before you start, we really recommend turning off all your other applications when recording the Microsoft Teams output. Your Teams status should also be set to not disturb, that you can get yourself ready for recording studio work. Okay, check your microphone. You want to check your microphone settings. So where applicable, you should use the raw output monitor of the microphone. This will actually show you how much noise is being picked up and collected. And this is kind of cool. And so there are little things that can really creep up into your audio, like how much noise your keyword can make, or your office chair. Like those are little things that you have to pay attention to. And you want to check also your Teams setting. And so you want to really validate you want to send and receive the audio from your clients. Like you can really see exactly whether it works or not. And the thing is, when troubleshooting audio quality, you want to pay attention to not only the input, but also the output. Okay, it's one of those things where you have to be clear about what really will work for you and not work for you. And sometimes you got to also think about the time of the day. Now, even though this has no direct correlation to your voice or the environment, sometimes when we talk about podcasting in general or recording a podcast, you got to be in the moment, right? You got to feel good. You got to feel the topic. So sometimes it's better to record it in the morning or record at night. and it depends on what kind of setting or timing works for you. But you gotta be in a situation where you are isolated enough so you can focus on the recording. Okay, I mean this is not only for yourself, but also that's for your listeners, because if your listeners feel like you are pretty comfortable, you're pretty quiet, you're pretty calm, they will feel it. They will love the quality of the audio. They'll love also the tone, the pace of your narration. And this is one of those things where you want to pay attention to, especially when you are speaking to different kinds of audiences. If you have a monolithic sort of audience, then you're good to go. If you have a strategy where you're constantly speaking to different audiences, you need to really adjust. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to record a podcast via Microsoft Teams. Let me give you a couple of smart moves here. So you can use Microsoft Teams built-in recorder, okay? And it's one of those things where Teams offers a built-in feature to record Microsoft Teams meeting, capturing video, audio, and screen sharing activities during a meeting. So this is just fantastic. If you tested it, you will love it. And this recording feature is particularly useful for quickly recording and sharing meeting content within the same organization, and making it very easy to record Microsoft Teams meetings for future reference. However, the built-in recorder does have a certain they do that feature does have certain shortcomings, which are really they can be a bummer. The thing is that you have to really know exactly what kind of audio quality level you want to be at. It's one of those things where you got to ask yourself: should you buy just a standalone software tool, or should you go with what Microsoft is already offering you? The bottom line is depends also whether your podcasting has an internal audience or external audience. The thing is, sometimes when people talk about podcasting, they automatically think about an external audience. But you have throughout the world, you have organizations. They have internal podcasts. And the podcast is only available to an internal audience. So basically, if you're talking to stakeholders, internal stakeholders, maybe the quality can be improved later on. But you can start with whatever you have right now. But if you are speaking to an external audience, let's say a more quote unquote sophisticated audience, then you really need to pay attention to things like quality of the mic, quality of the audio in general, and also your pace. Okay, your voice, your pace, everything. Those little things might seem little to you, but they do count a lot in the end, because that's what's going to retain your listenership, or just let them chase them away. The thing is that when we talk about a podcast through Teams, you also have a tool called OBS Studio. And OBS Studio is a free and open source software that enables users to record their Microsoft Teams meetings with ease. It offers a versatile screen recording solution that can capture video, audio, and screen sharing activities in high quality. And this is kind of cool. So you're able to actually avail yourself of OBS Studio, not a problem. Now ensure that you download the version of OBS Studio that's compatible with your operating system, whether you have Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. Once the download is complete, initiate the installer and follow the on-screen instructions to complete the installation process. And configuring OBS Studio for Teams meeting recording is kind of straightforward. So let's say after installing OBS Studio, you want to follow a few steps. Open the application and navigate to the sources section. Click on the plus button and select either display capture or window capture, depending on your preference. Choose the Teams meeting window as the capture source. And what you want to do in the end is you want to adjust the settings and position of the capture source accordingly. The bottom line here is that you need to see what really works for you. The OBS Studio is a pretty flexible software tool. You have to see which settings work for you. To start recording, click on the Start Recording button in OBS Studio. And when you wish to stop recording, simply click the Stop Recording button. And the recorded video can be saved in a location of your choice on your computer. One thing I want to say here is that when you actually go with OBS Studio, you have to understand that it is a free open source software, but they do have a community of developers. In case you need extra help, you might need to reach out to that community, and someone within the community will get maybe that person will charge you for it. But the thing is, the software itself is free. It's free to use. It's open source. And what we love about OBS Studio is that because it is open source, you have the ability to have massive improvements from one version to another. And this is kind of really good. You also need to make sure that whatever you are communicating with your listeners in your podcast, you have to make sure that the sound is high enough for them to really understand you clearly. Okay, so there's no sort of confusion. There is no noise. There's nothing. There's no distraction really. You can also use the Xbox Game Bar for Windows. This is also another strategy that can really help you out. And the thing here is that if you want to record Teams meeting on Windows, go through the Xbox Game Bar. This built-in Windows feature allows you to secretly record meetings without notifying participants, and this is kind of fine. Now the question is, are you comfortable recording secretly without telling participants? You also have you can record team meetings on mobile device. So by meetings, I'm talking also about the podcast though, okay? So recording Teams podcast or meetings on mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets is also possible. Both iOS and Android devices offer built-in screen recording features, and third-party apps are available for additional functionality. So to record a Teams meeting, simply use these features or apps during your session, okay? And so the thing is that you can also utilize third-party screen recorders. So if you are seeking additional features and flexibility in recording Teams meeting, third-party screen recorders like vMaker or Movavi, we have covered Movavi on this show before. Those are pretty good options. The tools offer a wide range of recording capabilities, including capturing all meeting elements and providing easy sharing and collaboration features for Teams meetings recording. So this is kind of cool. And so if we go, for instance, with vMaker actually offers unlimited watermark free recording of Teams meetings. And this is a cloud-based video recording and editing solution. With vMaker, you can record a system audio, microphone audio, or both simultaneously, providing flexibility in capturing the meeting content. What about Movavi? Movavi Screen Recorder is actually a third-party screen recording software that also provides the option to actually transcribe or even record a Teams meeting covertly. It captures all meeting elements, including whiteboards, shared notes, and annotations, providing a comprehensive recording solution. So this is kind of cool. And what we love about Movavi is that you can create tutorials, demos, presentations, and other types of video content in addition to capturing meetings. So overall, when you think about recording actually a podcast via Microsoft Teams, you need to really understand that you have flexibility and you have to really avail yourself of that flexibility. You can also enable music mode in Microsoft Teams. You just need to click the ellipsis button, choose devices, then scroll to high fidelity music mode and toggle this on. Okay, that's all you need to actually really capture a great quality audio, great quality video. And Microsoft Teams overall provides a convenient way to record podcasts. And if you follow the best practices that we just shared with you in this conversation, you can increase the production quality of your audio. And this is really cool. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I just walked you through the best practices when it comes to recording a podcast via Microsoft Teams. Let me quickly do a recap here. So I first give you the approach, next the pro tips, the smart moves, and finally the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.